Hey there, it is me, the Loch Ness Mobster, the god of all lore for Half-Life and Portal. Today, May 15th, is the debut of the secret series that I teased back a few months ago. In this 4-part series, I will be covering the Black Mesa incident, day by day, as it happened in real time. This series is heavily inspired by the week-by-week history coverage formula used by the YouTube channel Timeghost to cover World War I and II week by week, 100 years later. So please check them out. Anyways, today, or rather tomorrow, is the 20th time since the release of the first Half-Life that the events of the Black Mesa incident overlap with our own time. Well, I guess that's a fancy way of saying that it is the 20th anniversary of the Black Mesa incident, but that would be a bit misleading since we don't have an accurate or precise date for the incident itself. Because canonically it takes place in the year 2000X, which, fun fact, is a whole 10 years after the events of Earthbound and before the events of Undertale. Because they all like using that same way of displaying ambiguous dates. Anyways, I'm starting a day early to give a prelude to everything that happened leading up to the Black Mesa incident, so that tomorrow, May 16th, when Gordon Freeman pushes the infamous sample into the anti-mass spectrometer, we can all be on the same page. So without further ado, let's begin. Now, when I ask what caused the Black Mesa incident, there are a multitude of answers, ranging from the G-Man's mysterious motives, to the naivety of the Black Mesa science personnel, to the ignorance on the part of Dr. Wallace Bream, Black Mesa's administrator, and so on. But in this series, we're going to really be focusing on the big picture here, and then narrow down to the smaller details as they become relevant. So with that in mind, the first logical step towards the events of the Black Mesa incident began an unclear amount of time beforehand when the Combine Empire, or the Universal Union, invaded the homeworld of the Vortigaunts. The Combine, as we know, are an alien race whose power and technology are derived from synthetic creatures. Creatures of a planet or dimension that they conquer are turned into cyborg-like augmented versions of themselves, meant to combine, hence the name, the best of their evolutionary abilities and the technology that the Combine obtain to turn entire alien races into synthetic armies and weapons used to conquer more worlds. One such world, as mentioned in my last lore video, was the homeworld of the Sh'ulathoi, who the Combine found high value because of their godlike abilities, which made them the perfect synth. Though it is made clear that the Sh'ulathoi were not the founding members of the Combine, as that species is still unknown, they do make up the adversarial role within the Combine, and often oversee the conquests and operations of worlds. However, during the initial conquest of the Sh'ulathoi homeworld, some lucky ones did escape the conquest, and one of those, in theory at least, will prove to be very, very consequential. Now, to get back on topic, the Combine sought out the homeworld of the Vortigaunts and invaded. Several species existed on this world, mainly consisting of three-handed creatures such as the Vortigaunts and the Controllers, and also antlions, which the Vortigaunts, as said in Half-Life 2 Episode 2, would use for husbandry purposes. The Controller/Vortigaunt society is mainly based off of the Vortessence, which is a spiritual/telepathic network that they all have between them, and which also allows them to teleport anywhere at will, which is probably why the Combine wanted to conquer them, because the Combine do not possess local teleportation technology, and they may also find the Vortessence being a communication network, potentially strategically beneficial to them. The Combine, after their successful invasion, would install the Nihilanth, which is an elder of the Controller species, as the leader and overseer of the world. However, neither the Nihilanth nor any of the other races on the homeworld would appreciate this occupation. Who would? And so the Nihilanth would flee alongside a sizable amount, if not all, of the Vortigaunts and Controllers on the world. Using their teleportation abilities, they would go to Zen, a border world between dimensions where the Combine could not follow. So let's discuss Zen. As I mentioned, it is a border world between dimensions, and is a collection of potentially endless expanse of floating islands in space, perhaps near a gas giant or a nebula of sorts. In Zen, life becomes very harsh, because it's just a bunch of floating islands. Though they may be continuing the model created by the Combine, in the name of keeping a strong military defense in case the Combine or some other alien empire tries to invade. In Xenian society, the Nihilanth controls all through the power of the Vortessence, and inhibits the ability of the Vortigaunts, who've been reduced to slaves at this point, to teleport freely, by putting in special bands on their hands and feet. The controllers, meanwhile, control most of the individual operations of the Vortigaunt slaves. What are they doing? Well, they are put to work in the Xenian factories, producing a new type of synth creature, the alien grunt. These manufactured soldiers make up the backbone of the Xenian military, alongside Vortigaunts and controllers, who can hold their own or be deployed for combat if the need arises. Another alien in the Xenian military is the Gargantua. It is unclear whether or not the Gargantua are manufactured or born naturally, but they are, regardless, a force to be reckoned with. Lastly, there are the Xenian alien craft, otherwise known as the Flying Manta Ray, which are sort of deployed as a mobile teleportation point so that can fly into combat zones, and, well, other aliens can teleport to it and thus be dropped off in the field. Now that's the state of Zen, but what's the state of Earth or Black Mesa and any of the important people who will be participating in the Black Mesa incident tomorrow? Well, that story really begins back in the 1950s, when another battle has been ongoing. The battle for U.S. federal funding between two of the top science companies in America, the Aperture Science Innovators and Fixtures Incorporated and the Black Mesa Corporation. Aperture started back before Black Mesa did, and its beginnings going back to the end of World War II and the beginning of the Cold War, when the United States government began funding their scientific research, in particular, teleportation technology. Though they were in the lead back in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, they began to fall behind Black Mesa by the 1970s. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Though the two companies' teleportation research over the years would inevitably discover Zen, sometime in the 1950s most likely. Though Black Mesa is the only company we've seen involving themselves in Zen, it's entirely possible Aperture went there too, potentially first, as some of their technology, such as the zero-point energy field used on the portal gun, does require a Zen crystal to work, as seen on Black Mesa's own gravity gun. Not to mention, a good amount of Black Mesa's technology was actually stolen from Aperture Science back during its early days. Also, Aperture Science also possesses some Combine technology before the Black Mesa incident and subsequent 7-hour war, and the only way for them to obtain such technology is for them to have dimension-traveling technology. One such technology was the Borealis, a research vessel fitted with a high-tech teleportation device known as the Bootstrap device, which allowed it to travel through space, time, other dimensions, and parallel universes. It unfortunately was lost, however, sometime back in the 1970s, but more information can be seen in my Epistle 3 video. Anyways, with the loss of the Borealis and Aperture's shift from teleportation technology to other scientific research such as gels and later lunar exploration and mining, along with Black Mesa's stealing of their technology and Aperture's numerous health code violations, this would all eventually lead to a slow declining period in Aperture's history, which would allow Black Mesa to thrive. Though again, it's possible Aperture may have been involved in the early Zen and extra-dimensional teleportation research, Black Mesa would be the one who would fully utilize and study it to greater profit. A lot of this can be contributed to the work of a Dr. Rosenberg, who was involved in the early work on teleportation, and would eventually being tomorrow afternoon, develop the Zen relay method of teleportation. Him and Dr. Richard Keller would continue to oversee Black Mesa's teleportation technology and Zen exploration all the way into the 2000s. They would move out by the 1960s, of a decommissioned nuclear missile silos in which their prototype labs were located, and into newer modern facilities. The crown jewel of these facilities, though we don't have a clear time frame for its construction, was the Lambda Complex, which housed Black Mesa's state-of-the-art teleportation device to Zen, and massive nuclear reactor that powered it, both collectively known as the Lambda Core. From here, Black Mesa would send teamed missions to Zen, and would begin bringing back specimens, both living and mineral. The living specimens, mostly Vortigaunts, grunts, and other native Zen species, wildlife, would be sent to another one of Black Mesa's more notable areas, the Biodome Complex, and the adjacent Advanced Biological Research Labs and Hydrofauna Labs, all located in Sector E. Mineral substances, mainly the Zen crystals, which were key to the process of teleportation, and also in zero-point energy field manipulation, would be studied in the Anomalous Materials Labs in Sector C. So now let's begin to zero in on what happened in the past year that really led up to the incident. The G-Man is the mysterious figure who put all of this into motion. I theorized in my Green Grub video that he may be an adult Sha'ulathoi, who was mentioned earlier, and was likely one of the few Sha'ulathoi who escaped the Combine's invasion of the homeworld. However, it is unclear who his employers are, whether they are other Sha'ulathoi, or the US government, or a yet-to-be-seen force. Regardless, in March of this year, he showed up at the headquarters and main base of the Hazardous Environment Combat Unit of the United States Marine Corps in Santiago, Arizona. It is, to this day, unclear what his motives are, whether in causing the Black Mesa incident, whether it was an overcomplicated way of getting revenge on the Combine for invading his home planet, or if it was to dethrone the Nihilanth to free or conquer Zen, or whatever. I theorize the plan does involve, at least within the context of the Black Mesa incident, an HECU invasion of Zen. This is implied at the end of Half-Life 1, where, spoiler alert, after the Nihilanth's death, the G-Man states that the border world Zen is in our control for the time being. Now, to address the peanut gallery, I am aware that a developer did say that the surrounding scene of HECU Marines on Zen wasn't meant to be that, and as due to an engine skybox limitation. But you have to remember the context of what is being said during that scene, and since his employers control Zen for the time being, and remember his employers may be the US government, or are definitely working with them, or as seen an opposing force. So yes, they are in control of Zen, and this is likely the plan presented this March by the G-Man to the HECU. On March 3rd, according to the diary entries of Corporal Adrian Shepard, the G-Man arrives at the Santiago base and begins to relay the planned operation to HECU senior officers, who by now likely know the plan will involve aliens from another dimension, and thus I still kind of think that they are meant to enter and attack said dimension, because otherwise it would be a pointless suicide mission, and the senior officers would never agree to it. On March 15th, as Adrian Shepard continues, the HECU Marines themselves get their orders, saying to be ready in case it happens tomorrow, it being the Black Mesa incident. It, however, does not happen quite yet, because that was 2 months ago. In real life, there was an error in the opposing force development, and the dates got mixed around. They were supposed to be May, not March. However, I think I can create a theoretical explanation to retcon this mistake. You see, Aperture Science has been in a dark period since the 1970s and 80s, but after the death of its founder, Cave Johnson, and they're beginning to focus on artificial intelligence and robotics alongside the Portal Project. With new funding, things began to look up, and they got a brand new, much more modern facility in the 1990s known as the Aperture Science Enrichment Center. And though they are still behind Black Mesa, they still could have posed a threat in the future. I believe the G-Man may have seen this as being worrisome, as again, they may have possessed interdimensional teleportation technology. And if the plan is to invade Zen, then Aperture Science could have potentially interfered. After all, they are stockpiling a massive supply of military-grade turrets. So perhaps the G-Man felt they needed to put a stop to it before the Black Mesa incident, so postponed it from March 16th till May 16th while he went and dealt with it. This idea is kind of explored in the non-canon fan game Portal Prelude, and put a stop to Aperture's meddling, the G-Man did. For not too long before the Black Mesa incident, perhaps only a few days ago, was Aperture Science's infamous Bring Your Daughter to Work Day, in which the scientists of Aperture Science activated their brand new artificial intelligence system known as the Genetic Lifeform and Disk Operating System, or GLaDOS, who subsequently flooded the Aperture Science Enrichment Center with neurotoxin, killing most of the personnel, and following that began a permanent cycle of testing, in which the survivors and other test subjects in the extended relaxation were released and began tests on the Aperture Science handheld portal device in order to beat Black Mesa for funding. So with Aperture Science out of commission, the HECU prepared for battle, and the Xenians unknowingly about to be in the crosshairs of a deadly war, the G-Man will be executing the Black Mesa incident tomorrow at approximately 9 a.m. Mountain Time. Here's a few more things to end off today that happened today. Barney Calhoun, a recently hired security guard, is assigned to the Blue Shift security guard shift from now until August. Today is also the latest date in which Gordon Freeman was expected to accept his employment at Black Mesa, though he's more than likely working there by now, as he is assigned to be in the Anomalous Materials Lab tomorrow. And lastly, this evening at 2030 hours, Dr. Richard Keller instructs Dr. Gina Cross on how to use the prototype Mark V hazardous environment suit, which of course Gordon Freeman will be wearing in Half-Life 2. That is all for today. I will see you tomorrow for day 1. Stay tuned, and special thanks to Dread Isle, Glorious Rigby, and my editor Molly. We'll see you guys next time.